everyone, my name is LBK and this is King Pair Podcast. Now, this is the episode about the Asia Cup first round wrap up. So, let me give an update first of all. India, Bangladesh, beg your pardon, Afghanistan, and Sri Lanka have already qualified. India with 2 wins, Afghanistan's got 2 wins, while Sri Lanka defeated Bangladesh yesterday by 2 wickets to get through the second rounds. And Bangladesh, as a result of their defeat, are out of the tournament. Ravin Jadeja is out of the tournament owing to a knee injury. Patel will be replacing him. So, guys, let's get your opinions early on. Welcome both of you. Hi, Stuff. Hi, there, Ghostly.
Hello.
So, let's go through your opinion of the injury and its impact to Indian team or the overall tournament.
Yeah, Jadeja is obviously a very important player for India, and they will severely miss his impact. We saw in the game against Pakistan, especially, just how flexible he can be. You can push him up the order if you need a left-handed batter, and also just as a solid left-arm spinner who just rushes through his over, he's very useful. And Akshar Patel is a fine bowler, but he's not Jadeja.
Yeah, I think Stuff basically summed up what Jadeja means to India. He could flow up the order wherever you need him. He gets through his overs quickly. He's economical. Well, I do very much like Akshar. Yeah, he's not Jadeja. He's someone who India's going to miss sorely, but I think they will be able to manage without him.
Now, another follow-up question, almost regarding the similar issue. Do you think if you had the choice to make, do you think you'd prefer Akshar Patel on these pitches, or maybe you'd go for someone like Deepak Hooda who can, give you 2 overs and can be a much better bat than Akshar Patel, but maybe he'll be much less in the in the spin side. Do you think he can be the one to replace Jadeja at let's say 6 or 7?
I think yes. We've seen him bat at the top of the order. We've seen him bat towards the back end. He's just a generally explosive batsman. He could give the team extra runs, and his bowling isn't. Obviously, it's not Jadeja's level of bowling, but it is good enough that if you have to use him, you can use him and not be too concerned about it. But I think just on the batting end, you could select Hooda by himself as a pure batsman. But yeah, I think he would be a good replacement.
I don't think he would be a good replacement because I think against these teams it would probably work fine. Yes, the teams India would expect to play in the Super 4, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, because they don't have as pressing a need for the fifth bowler here as they would against, the top teams. But, it depends on what India want out of the Asia Cup. Do they want the best short-term performance, in which case you would go with Hooda because, he gives you an extra explosive batter and the bowling isn't dropping off too much, but it does make you more reliant on your sixth bowling option? Or do you go with what India would probably want to do against England, Australia, South Africa, which is to have 5 full proper bowlers that you would expect 4 overs out of, and that's probably what they want to do in Australia. So if you deviate from that strategy in the Asia Cup, which is probably India's best warm-up for the World Cup, then when are you gonna practice this strategy after this? So I think they should go with Akshar. I think they should go with Akshar because he's a lot closer to Jadeja in terms of what they want tactically than what Hooda will give.
Obviously.
I think that I think just for the current Asia Cup, if they want to win the Asia Cup, they should go with Hooda because, as I've said many times before, he's the best T20 batsman in India. But if they want to win the Asia Cup, they should go for him. But as I said, if they're looking to solidify a long-term strategy going into the World 2020 in Australia, then it would make sense to play someone closer to what Jadeja does than what Hooda does.
I think if you want to play Hooda as the best as India's best T20 batter, you play him as a batter. You replace one of the batters
Yeah.
with him. You don't replace Jadeja with him.
Okay. And obviously, as there's these 6 T20s in India, 3 against South Africa and 3 against Australia, so we'll probably get a clearer answer back then in case Jadeja does not recover from his injury. And moving on, talking about Sri Lanka, Bangladesh batting first, scored 183 for 7. Sri Lanka, in the reply, got 184 for 8, chased it down in just 19.2 overs. And since slandering Bangladesh is your favorite thing, I think you can explain this game better than any of us.
Look, I called it, right? Bangladesh are not gonna make it out of the first round. Yeah, like that's what do you expect from Bangladesh? They batted all right for the most part on a decent batting pitch. They bowled all right for chunks, and then they gave it away at important moments. They got dragged into the mind game war before the match, and that probably didn't help. Because I don't think Bangladesh is that strong of a team mentally as well. And you sort of saw that at the end. Just they were very poor with their discipline with the ball, and gave away a lot of free runs. The no ball in the last over, it didn't matter at that point. But Ibado's no ball in the previous over, that was huge, and I think that is probably what cost them the game more than anything that happened in the last over. And as well, again in the last over, I think the last ball was hit for 4, and it was to it was to the number 9 and number 10. You shouldn't be conceding boundaries if you're one of the star bowlers to the number 9 and number 10. And again, it was just a bad ball that got hit away. And yeah, it was just Bangladesh is not. They have no idea what they're doing, and we saw that against Sri Lanka. They should have won that game several times over, and they didn't.
Yeah, I think the number 9 and number 10 thing, you see that happen more and more now. You saw Shanawaz Dahani played to India. The tail end slugger is definitely a thing, but yeah, I agree that in the context of the Bangladesh and Sri Lanka game, they should have been bowling tighter lines. They should have given them an opportunity to do that, given that the runs required was quite more than the balls. I believe it was like 8 off 4 or something. But yeah, with the bat, you saw when Shakib Al Hasan came in, the first thing he did was wildly swing with the horizontal bat across and miss. He almost nicked it off. I just think their whole unit coming into the team was undisciplined. Maybe they were still a bit shaken from the Afghanistan game. You saw Shakib Al Hasan, he won the toss. Bangladesh won the toss and chose to bat, and then that's why he made some sort of statement like Afghanistan is going to struggle to score runs, so we have to, or something along those lines. And then you had their coach before the Sri Lankan game saying that they don't have world-class bowlers. People love to support underdog teams, but when the underdog teams start to get arrogant, it becomes harder to support them. I think moving forward, put their heads down and play the game how it should be played. I saw in the Afghanistan game no sense in them choosing to at first. It's the UAE. You don't really do that. Yeah, Bangladesh came in. They didn't look a good side. They didn't look a serious side. Dished by both Afghanistan and Sri Lanka. So what we expected to happen happened. Obviously, to see them go out, but I think they 100% deserve to get bounced in the first round. And hopefully they go back to the drawing board and they deal with the issues they have, both on the field and mentally.
Bangladesh, I think, has stopped being an underdog since 2015 when they made the World Cup quarterfinals. They beat England, they beat Pakistan, India, and South Africa on the bounce. They drew a test series with England. They drew a test series with Australia the following year. I think that's the point.
To be honest,
stopped
they
being
have
an
not
underdog.
been underdogs since 2007. I mean, they had formed a really good course since then. So keep hovering around that one level that they have been, playing since what, 2005, 6. It has always been the same kind of play. There has been the quality of the team has been the same since then, and even their attitude has been the same. The controversies never end, and people never learn their lessons, I guess.
I think there's like a gap, all right? Like it's obviously it's cricket. Any team could win on any given day, but I wouldn't put Bangladesh in the same category as like India or as New Zealand. There's a gap to it.
Like even in that 2007 tournament, they beat India and South Africa, but they also lost to Ireland, which was, Ireland only won 2 games all tournament. One of them was against Pakistan, one of them was against Bangladesh.
My first World Cup was 2011, so I don't remember much before that.
In 2011, they had a crucial home game with the West Indies to make the quarterfinals, and they got bowled out for like 45.
Yeah.
And then 2014, they lose to Hong Kong.
Ghostly, I think no one from India or Pakistan should remember that tournament.
Which one?
The 2007 World Cup.
Oh, yeah.
The 2007. No one wants to remember that tournament.
In 2014, they host the Asia Cup and the World T20 back-to-back, and they lose to Afghanistan in the Asia Cup, and they lose to Hong Kong in the World T20, and they go win round of the World T20. And, since then, like the only team they've put distance between themselves with is Zimbabwe. They're not better. They're not that much better than Ireland.
Just like 2 weeks ago, they lost to them in like all 3 games, right?
Yeah, like since 2015, they had a huge gap between them and Zimbabwe, but now they've lost 2 series in a row to Zimbabwe again. So it's back to the drawing board. And yeah, they destroyed Australia and New Zealand on Mirpur pitches last year, but at the World Cup they lost to Scotland. They lost every game in the main round. And
to me, those paddy fields in airport don't count. Like, sure, you won on your kind of weird pitches at home, but why? But what didn't matter when you went to Dubai and got thrashed, right? So, I think the Bangladesh Cricket Board has a lot to work on.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems within Bangladesh. The problem with playing in Mirpur is that Mirpur already hosts so many matches because they play every single domestic thing in Mirpur because they can't be bothered to go to the rest of the country. So when Mirpur hosts internationals, the pitches are not great.
Yeah, I saw a picture that the pitch was like quite literally bleeding. Like there was like this black goop coming out of it. Like, yeah, they played that pitch to death. And I'm sure Bangladesh has a lot of other grounds, and there's a lot of other places to play. I recall either Australia or New Zealand saying that they'd only play in Mirpur, so you can't really fault them there. But just in general, they should move on to different grounds, just not hold everything in the same place.
It's a problem when your country's biggest domestic competition isn't called the Bangladesh Premier League or the Bangladesh Cricket League. It's called the Dhaka Premier League because all the teams are in Dhaka. All the teams are based in Dhaka, and they all play at Mirpur. Bangladesh cricket is way too centralized. Even the BPL, they do the same thing as the PSL, right? But they only play at Mirpur and they play a few games at Chittagong or whatever. Pakistan has its reasons for not taking the games to the other cities, but there's no excuse for Bangladesh to be playing 80% of the competition in Mirpur. They should be playing in way more grounds, and they should be recruiting from way more places.
I think the PSL was supposed to spread to Multan, but something about COVID or something. I don't know, but yeah, we saw the Multan crowd for the Pakistan versus West Indies game, so I definitely believe that it should, once everything in Pakistan settles down to the volatile right now, I think they should give them Multan's their home games in Multan. The atmosphere there is incredible.
Yes, we can keep complaining about Bangladesh, but it's the same stuff that's been said thousands of times over.
Yeah.
They have they're littered with issues. I think they're definitely going to lose to whoever the associate team qualifies for their group is in the T20 World Cup.
Mhm.
I think they still have yet to win a main round T20 World Cup game since the 2007 one, which was their first game. They beat the West Indies, and they haven't won a single one since. And I don't see that changing in Australia. If it's the UAE or Namibia or whoever qualifies, I think they're losing that game. And yeah, like I just don't see Bangladesh getting any better until they have major structural changes. And you could have said this at any point since 2010.
Yeah.
Bangladesh is not going to get better until things change, and things still haven't changed, despite a lot of false dawns.
Yeah. Well, Sri Lanka exists too. They played well. I believe Kusal Mendes had 60. Dasun Shanak had 40 odd. I think like 45 or something. Their middle order collapsed. But apart from that, it was a solid outing from them. They took it to the end, and I believe this was like the highest chase in Asia Cup T20 history, which, to be honest, isn't that long. I believe the only other T20 edition was like 2018.
2016, yeah.
2016.
2016, actually. Moving on to India versus Hong Kong, and I think that game is pretty much what it is. And talking about Hong Kong, I would love to know how did you see Hong Kong's performance in that game? I mean, they did some good things, they did some horrendous things in the death, but let's just positives for now. And what were the positives that you guys saw in them? I'd love to know.
I don't want to disparage Hong Kong by saying they put up a good showing and they did, they won hearts and minds and whatever. They would have come into this wanting to win. They didn't win, but they did all right. A very positive thing for them is that they just didn't look out of their depth for the most part, and that's a good thing when you're playing a team ranked so much higher than you. Like I mentioned this elsewhere, but like at associate level, the level Hong Kong mostly plays, most of the best bowlers are either right arm, medium fast bowlers or off spinners. So Hong Kong should do very well against those bowlers, and they did. They did very well against Avish and Arshdeep, bowling at mid 130s, that sort of speed, and that's the sort of stuff Hong Kong is used to, and they played well against that. And where Hong Kong struggled was the bowlers they don't normally face at that level. A bowler like Bhuvaneshwar, who doesn't have the most speed, but he is very tricky, has a lot of variations in his locker that you don't see that too often at Hong Kong's level. Jadeja and Chahal, very good left arm off spinners and very good leg spinners. They struggled against them, and again, you don't see those sort of bowlers right now struggling against Naseem Shah as we record this game. A very fast, quick bowler. Again, you don't get that too many bowlers like that at their level. And I think that probably is why Afghanistan do so well against these sorts of teams, because they have very elite spinners, which very few other teams have. That's why Lamichhane does so well for Nepal, and Nepal doing so bad at that level is a disaster, because they should be doing way better with the bowling stocks they have. But anyways, like in general, associate teams will do better against bowlers they're used to, and we saw that with Hong Kong. And they also struggle against bowlers they don't face that often, and again, we saw that with Hong Kong.
Hong Kong's batting, to be honest, it was not that bad. You saw they didn't look completely lost. They did a lot better than I thought they would. In the ongoing game against Pakistan, as stuff said, they're struggling with the express pace, which they don't usually face. Naseem Shah has taken 2 wickets so far, and Babar Hayat has been dismissed on a duck. So I think the more they play, and this goes back to what we've been asking the ICC to do for ages, the more they play against full member nations, the better we'll get. So the more opportunities they have to play against Pakistan, against India, against Australia, against England, the better they'll get. The more you can't get good without playing against teams that are good. And to perform like they did, but the next jump comes when you consistently play against better teams. I think Afghanistan is kind of halfway through that jump. They're getting more games against full members. Yeah, and then on India, Surya Kumar Yadav just played an incredible knock. Virat Kohli played good. India did what they came in to do. They did what they're supposed to do. I don't think there's much else to be said on my end about that.
Now that we have come on to India, yeah. So see, I was talking about KL Rahul, right? KL Rahul and his struggle with rhythm. He came back during the Zimbabwe series. He struggled there. He has come here and he's struggling again. And it seems like his thing recently. I mean, he got injured late 2020 in Australia. Came back in the England home series against England. Struggled a lot there. And then this has happened again. I guess, with someone like him who is more dependent on the rhythm, as you have seen, he kind of takes his time to get going. Do you think similarity between him and Pakistani batters also, especially their top order, that a lot of people take their time. We have seen Imam ul Haq in ODIs do the same. And it affects their team when they cannot catch.
Yeah, Pakistan does have a lack of top order power hitters. Babar and Rizwan are both accumulators. I think they're the best running duo in the world. They take some very quick singles. Rizwan was talking about how just blind faith between the two. But yeah, the best we have is a Man, he's explosive sometimes. But yeah, we see sometimes how the top order then sticking around for like 12 overs and then going into the middle order in the tail, it doesn't give them enough experience to like kind of properly mesh in their role if they're barely given any time to play in the role. So yeah, that's a discussion to have on tactics. This is a tactic that Pakistan has been going with for a year or so now. It's been working decently so far. If we have to change it, then that'll happen when it proves to not work. But yeah, so far that's what we've been going with.
I cannot understate how disastrous that Rahul innings was, right? It was 36 off 39 in a pitch where his team made 190. Okay, like it's like, and I can't understand it because it's very easy to just like brush over it as you look at 190 and so it's a good score and you won by 30 runs. What's the problem, right? If India played a team that again, no offense to Hong Kong, and they know this themselves, they will never chase 190 against a team like India, against a team like Pakistan, right? They'll do it against Maldives. So it's not going to happen because Maldives won't make 190 in the first place. But like Hong Kong are not a team that'll chase down 190 in a T20 match. And it goes back to something else that we've talked about before. But like for a lot of associate teams, they actually prefer playing one-day internationals to T20 games because it's easier to win games if you can go at a lower level for a longer time than a higher level for a shorter time. So like in the Hong Kong example, chasing 270 against India in an ODI would be easier than chasing 190 in a T20 because you don't have to go, crazy for the whole game. You can go at a lower level for a longer time. Anyways, back to the original point. Rahul's innings 36 off 39 in a match where his team made 190. That is just so disastrously bad. And the only way you can make up for it is if he, started hitting at the end and made it. And if he scored, what did Surya Kumar Yadav make? Like 60 off 22, something like that. If he made 60 off 22 from that point, 68 off 26. Yeah. If he made that after Rahul made that after 36 off 39, that would be like 100 runs off like 60.
102 off 65.
Yeah, 102 off 65, which is a fine enough innings. But like Rahul was not looking like he was going to suddenly hit 68 off 26.
In the words of the man himself, strike rate is overrated.
If he does this against a better team, a team that could actually chase 190. This is what they did in that semifinal in 2016. This is the sort of thing that will sink India in a major match. It doesn't, well, maybe not even a major match, maybe in just a group stage game against a better team. It's holding the team back playing like this. And yes, he's out of rhythm and all that, but that's when you make the decision to take him out of the side, take him out of the firing line. Like when Rahul got out right after Surya Kumar Yadav hit 2 fours and 2 balls, and I don't think Rahul had even hit 2 boundaries in his whole innings.
Tactical retirements.
No, he didn't even tactically retire. He got out. That's worse than tactical retirement because it wastes the ball.
There comes a point where they get tactically retired by the.
He's not as ethical as Ashwin, I guess.
Dravid. I saw someone say Dravid declared when Sachin was on 194 he should have retired Rahul and Kohli, and he should have. I want to see Dravid do that because it would be very funny. This is the thing that will hold India back, right, in a major game. They should have weighed well over 200 on, the way Surya Kumar Yadav was playing. They should have made well over 200, but they couldn't because they had already wasted so much time in the first 12 overs.
Actually, talking about this, it is actually an interesting thing. I mean, as we have seen that...
first time that a retirement happened, it was by Bhutan. One of their players was out there for quite a few balls and wasn't scoring runs, so their coach just called him back. That's the first tactical retirement in international T20.
Yeah, I think that was a South Asian Games match. Jared Kimber's a whole video about it where you dive into the whole history. You can check that out later.
Yeah, I think Shahid Afridi has retired as well in one of the practice games. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a practice game, though. A lot of people.
Yeah, practice games, you have retirements all the time. Not even for tactics, just to get other people through the door.
In general terms. Yeah, but here comes my point. So what I'm saying is, obviously, as we have seen that India has a really informed middle order. I mean, if you see from number 4 to number 7, you have got Surya Kumar Yadav, Pant, there's Hardik Pandya, there's Jadeja, and if Dinesh Karthik plays, then there's him as well. He would probably play instead of Pant. But do you think, since India has the middle order that isn't the form, do you think there could be a point in maybe T20 World Cup where you could see such a tactical retirement happening, especially for someone like Virat or KL Rahul, who often, these days fail to get the rhythm that is needed for the death?
It's possible. The game is always evolving. It's very possible that could become a tactical norm. You saw a couple of years ago, some team pulled out I think it was England in South Africa or something. They pulled out the coach. The coach puts numbers on a piece of paper, and at first we thought what is that? But now a lot more teams are doing tactics like. Yeah, the game evolves. I think it's very plausible that it could become commonplace.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. I don't think we'll see it at the World Cup, but eventually it'll probably happen. I think if it was to happen at the World, if it happened more in regular T20 internationals leading up to, be more expected to see it at the World Cup, but because I think teams will just hold back until later and then try it out more in regular games. So maybe we'll see it at 2024 or 2026.
Moving on, I know we have talked about Bangladesh already, and there's still the game against Afghanistan to be talked about. But solely talking about Afghanistan, how much do you rate them, as far as being the contender for the title in the Asia Cup this time goes?
My thoughts haven't changed since the preview. I think they have one very, very strong strength with their spin bowling, and everything else is a little lacking. Their batting is okay, but it's still a little stuck in the past and a little hit or miss. Their fast bowling is better than probably it's ever been, but it's still a little lacking. But on the UAE, that might not matter that much. But it'll all come down to if their spinners can suffocate the Indian and it's looking very likely Pakistani batters and the Sri Lankan batters again. And if they win 2 or 3 of those games, they make the final, and then if they can do it again in the final. But like in general, like I think Afghanistan, their ceiling is very high because they have that one very, very strong strength in their spin bowlers. They can, suffocate their opponents. I wouldn't be surprised if any team gets bowled out for 100 or makes 120 overs against them because they have 12 overs at least of just very, very relentless bowling. And then but it's the other 8 overs where the problem comes, and especially with how Afghanistan uses their tactics. We saw this against Bangladesh. They could have killed the game off very quickly had they kept their spinners on. But they go for safe tactics a lot. They always go for tactics when they're bowling of expecting the game to go for 20 overs, or in ODIs for 50 overs. You see this all the time in ODIs, especially a couple of years ago. They've lightened up on it a little now, but especially a couple of years ago, Rashid Khan would always come in over 29 or over 30, and he would bowl 10 in a row from there to the last over. Whereas, if you brought him in earlier, you probably could have bowled the other team out way quicker, and it wouldn't have gone to the 50th over in the first place. And against Bangladesh, had they kept Mujib on, had they brought in Rashid Khan earlier, they probably would have bowled Bangladesh out way quicker. And I think that's probably what holds them back a bit. With their current limitations, I think they could still make a better run of it, even with their current limitations, if they had better tactics and a more tactically astute captain. And I just see that holding them back from, going all the way here.
For me, Afghanistan has kind of been what I expected, maybe a bit. I didn't rate their batting as high, but they've proven competent. Stuff basically said everything there is to say about them. Their spin bowling is their main strength, and it can carry them far. A finals berth is possible. I could see them possibly beating Pakistan, or they already beat Sri Lanka. They could do it again. So I think this will be the most competitive Super 4 we've seen in a while. Like every team's is good. So,
there's only been one other second group stage in Asia Cup history.
Listen. You know what I meant.
I'm not even going to call it the Super 4. It's a dumb name. It's the second group stage.
Honestly, Asia Cup is just a tournament to force more than one Pakistan-India game.
I ranted about this last time. I don't need to.
It's just for the broadcasters to make bank. It's fun for the fans though, because we can potentially get a 5-game T20 series between Pakistan and India if all 3 times here and then twice in the World Cup in Australia. There's not much else to say about that. On the topic of this before, it's looking like Pakistan is going to beat Hong Kong. They have them 25-4. Hong Kong struggling with the pace and the leg spin of Shadab. So it's looking like we're going to have India, Pakistan on Sunday, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan tomorrow. So there's a good few days of cricket up ahead.
Now that we have abandoned any discussions about Sri Lanka, let's get into it as the last thing. So first thing that I'd like to tell you, do you know Sri Lanka won the Asia Cup in 2014?
Yes, I remember that. I watched that game.
I was there.
Yeah. Okay. Now here's another thing. Their win against Bangladesh was their first win against any of the original 4 teams since that win in the finals in 2014.
Really?
They have played 8 games since then. Yeah. Only won against UAE and lost every other game.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because Afghanistan didn't make the main stage in 2016. And Sri Lanka didn't make the second round in 2016.
Sri Lankan cricket is on the bounce back now. Like once Sangha and Mahela and Dilshan and Linga all retired, it did go downhill very fast. So that's a really interesting stat, but it's not completely surprising. They are on the rebound though, and that's great to see because I love them. So it's good to see them fighting back.
Yeah, like they've had massive player turnover since then as well. Like churn through. I wouldn't be surprised if they've like played the most international players since that
Yeah.
time in that time. But yeah, like now they're starting to come across a consistent 11, a consistent 15. They still drop players randomly for no reason sometimes. Like I'm still not sure why Karuna Ratna wasn't kept on as the ODI captain, but that's the Sri Lankan cricket board for you. But yeah, like they are on the up. They're we said this in the preview already. Like most of what we're saying, we've already said in the preview. I wouldn't be surprised if Sri Lanka make the final. I don't expect them to. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. They're a decent team. They had an awful game against Afghanistan, but I think that's more of a exception than the norm. They've had a solid 2022, a solid 2021, and it's only up from wherever they were in 2018, where they lost to Afghanistan. They got thrashed by Afghanistan. They got thrashed by Bangladesh, and they went home in the first round.
Talking about that game, obviously it looked like Sri Lanka were making their batting choices like Dora the Explorer makes her choices. So, even though that game was kind of a mess for them, I am beginning to see there's a lot of things that are coming together for Sri Lanka. Even though, they did win a game each against Australia in the T20 series in Australia and in Sri Lanka. They won one game, I think, in both series. And they won the ODI series as well, if I remember correctly. So there's things that are getting better. Obviously, we have talked about the Pakistan Test series. That was decent for them as well. But even outside of that, it looks like Sri Lanka is coming together, from what I can see. And ultimately, the question comes to how they are going to fare in the first round, as stuff said. What are your expectations from Sri Lanka in the first round?
I think they lose to India, they lose to Pakistan, and the game against Afghanistan is a 50-50.
Yeah, I agree with stuff.
So that is pretty much it. Anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, Pakistan's pretty much made the second round at this point, with Hong Kong currently reviewing a decision that would leave them 30 for 5. So India, Pakistan on Sunday, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan tomorrow, and second round, second India, Pakistan game. It's exactly what the ACC wants.
Yeah, just another round of waking up with tension, days being cut off of a lifespan.
And the game,
at the end of the last Pakistan India game last Sunday, I could feel my heart beating out of my chest. It was
same for me.
I just hope that was amazing.